Jim came to us about a year ago and went over the lyrics with Maureen and I and said, I am going to give birth to a CD, and just wanted to get some of your feedback on the words and lyrics. And then we got a copy of some of the songs, and of course I know all the songs, so when I'm sitting there during the performance and someone's taping right here to the right of me, left of me, I wanted to sing really loud. You know, my God, and Maureen's going, not your concert, dude. I want to get little Jim on the CD here. And I said, well, you're right, it's not mine, but actually this moment is mine. So now I get my 22 minutes to say my piece, right? The CD release party, the Christ demonstration of all the years of your practice. It's such an amazing thing to have a form of that and share with other people. But thank you, Jim. Thank you. Thank you. Emmanuel, and ransomed captive Israel. What does that mean, ransomed captive Israel? Well, we're all living in bondage to different forms of the Egyptian state of consciousness, are we not? We all feel like we're in bondage to something or to someone, some condition, some circumstance, some challenge that we constantly feel we're being held by, held back by. And so we need teachings that help us to move us out of bondage into the promised land. Egypt represents egoic consciousness, believing itself to be only the 5 physical senses, to go around once in life, to grab all the gusto you can. All I get is this little dash between the moment when I'm born and the moment when I die. So I got to try to squeeze as much stuff in that I can in between, because when it's over, it's over. That's Egyptian consciousness. That keeps us stuck. And so in our story, we are moving, bless you, out of bondage to the promised land. Israel represents our oneness with God, our oneness with the one. But in order to get there, in order to go from being in bondage to the Egyptian state of consciousness to entering into the promised land, first of all, we need help. And it comes from the Christ consciousness, the one we call the Savior, who brings a healing ointment, salvos, Savior, who helps massage the cramped muscles that get stuck in positions of lack and limitation and fear. And we also have to be willing to cross the hot sands of the desert and spend time dealing with the subconscious mind, with our own issues and tissues that we face there. They won't kill us, although they're hot and they can hurt. We got to be willing to look at what those issues and tissues are, don't we? And so the predominant vehicle for the separation seeming like it's real while we're here is the body. The body now in flesh appearing. It seems to be what we are. It seems to hold us in and others out. It seems to keep us feeling very separate, does it not? Most of the time, you wake up and all of its needs are constantly there. We're constantly dealing with the body. So the body is the place where we get to do our work. When I was a kid, I used to like to play with a puppet. An Emmett Kelly puppet. Do you remember Emmett Kelly with the little red tie and the wooden teeth that knocked, and there was a little string you held in like this and it opens the mouth? I used to love to put him on my lap because I could talk with him and I could say things to other people that I would never say to them myself. I could, sort of project out my other alter ego part of me onto other people. And I could also have conversations with this little puppet. It would just be just right there with me, back and forth. In fact, it was a way in which I could see this part of myself in a way that I couldn't see if I didn't have the puppet on my lap. So I'm watching a video with Maureen live streaming, and it's called Dumbstruck. And it's about ventriloquists who meet once a year. 450 of them go to a convention, a ventriloquist convention. And the story's about 6 different people and their journeys into this particular thing they love to do so much. And there's a small person, 10, 12 years old. There's a middle person. There's an older person, tall, short. All 6 of them. And they all have one thing in common. They all want to make it big in the limelight as a ventriloquist. Sound like anybody you know? I want to make it big. I want to take the one light and become the limelight. Yeah? We all want that. And they're very insecure people. But yet when they put that little puppet on their dummy, on their knee, whoop, everything changes. So the moment I saw the show, I said, bingo, this is going to be a talk. I get it. So here we are, you and I, we're sitting in the doorway, come on, be with me now, of all that is, I am that I am, one in Eden consciousness. This is where we are. But then all of a sudden, there is this one tiny mad idea where the infinitesimal ripple decides it's the ocean, where this faintest sunbeam decides it's the sun, and all of a sudden, me, myself, and I becomes Little Richie. And here he is. Hi, everybody, it's Little Richie. Hi. Good to see you. Don't I look great? Don't you think I'm wonderful? And this is the egoic consciousness. This is that tiny mad idea that takes one little step out of the kingdom of knowingness and decides it wants to have a life separate from its source. You know this person very well. It's the one you deal with. The Kabbalah says 99% of us exist in heaven. Only 1% is having this little dream of being Little Richie. Hi, everybody. Aren't you terrific? Do you love me? Come on, you can't love me enough. Love me more. Love me more. And there's a moment, every Bible, every holy book talks about it, where we're sitting there with ourselves, still very close to listening to the still small voice within. And we have an idea. I'd like to go off, if you wouldn't mind, let's get out of here, and let's go find something that's missing. Come on, Richie, let's go. I said, well, you know, I don't know if that's such a good idea. Why don't you ask God? Well, okay, hey, God, do you mind if I take a little journey out there into a far country? And what do you think God says? Yes, God always says, yes, go ahead. Here's a portion, not all of it. A portion of energy. Now go and have fun, but don't forget me. Oh, no worries, I won't forget you. Yeah, baby! Off we go into the world of yapping and movement and looking for something that isn't missing in us. But we're trying to find it. We hope one day we'll find it. This is what we have to deal with on the spiritual path. The wholeness and oneness of us doesn't need any healing. It's already one. It's only this little tiny part that needs healing and blessing. I remember when I was a kid, I loved to be, for most of you, in front of audiences and people. You see pictures of me when I was 3 and 4 years old, and I'm like, I'm so for my heart runneth over with me, my heart's in an... Look at me, 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 look at me. I was really not secure at all about myself. I wasn't very good at school. You know, I wasn't a great student at all. I got by, but that was all. I was in the slow class for a while. And I really wasn't very good at sports either, because I didn't really believe in myself at all. And I was always one of those kids that got picked last. You know that feeling, how that feels to be picked last. So what did I decide to do? I decided to do things that didn't compete with anybody else. I became a weightlifter and a long-distance runner, because those didn't have anything to do with anybody else. And that was me dealing with Little Richard, the way in which I could be a star. And so when I found ministry and got up on a pulpit, this was it. I could be me. You'd look at me, look at me, look at me. Oh, this is so great. I like ministry in Seattle. Oh, it went to 1,200, 1,300. Yay, Richard! You're the light of the world, man, and nobody like you. You know, then I went to San Luis Obispo. And it was 600, 550. Oh, Richard, you're the best. And then I got on the Maury Povich show. National TV, flexing my muscles. Now I'm finally good enough. Now my career is going to start. Oh, you're going to be something, man. I'm telling you. People are going to notice who you are now. I just know it. There's a story in the tape that runs to the CD of the video of that movie that we watched, where all of them are on their journey to become a star, to let the one light become known in the limelight. And there's one particular man who actually makes it. His name is Terry Vader. I don't know if you know him or not, but he's a very famous ventriloquist now. And he actually ends up at 42 years old getting on his version of the Maury Povich show, but it actually goes somewhere. And he ends up on America's Most Talented show. And here's a guy who's been doing this for all these years, for birthday parties and bar mitzvahs and, you know, little tiny insignificant things. And all of a sudden he gets on in front of the most talented and he goes, "Ah!" And he starts to sing this operatic voice, and literally overnight he goes from being dumbstruck to stuck. He ends up awakening to his potential. And he goes from being somebody who barely made a living. And his wife always said, I believe in you, baby. You just need to get in front of the right audience. We all know that one. You know, and his break came. And he ends up getting a place in Las Vegas called the Mirage Hotel with his own room filled with space for 5,000 people. And big, big letters, Terry Vader, Finally, there he is. I've made it. I'm finally somebody. Oh boy, yay for me. I've got it. He gets a contract for $100 million over 5 years. He's still doing that role now. But he's still inside the same, you know what I'm saying? Terry Vader. You know, trying to get people to love him and to like him enough, which we can all relate to. And there's a moment in the video where he's gone back to his old hometown to perform for those people who he performed for throughout his whole life, a high school auditorium. And 1,200 people come to 2 performances. The place is packed. They're lined up around the block to get there. And after the 2 shows, he's sitting in a chair and the camera's zooming in on him. They said, well, Terry, what was that like to come back and have all the success? He said, well, it was wonderful to see all my old friends and my family. He said, however, the one person who I really wanted to be here was my dad, who lives 2 miles down the road. He's never approved of any of this. And even with all this success that I've had, I'm still not good enough in his eyes. Do you feel that? No matter how much success you get outwardly in this world, until you can own it inwardly in your heart, it will never be enough, no matter what you get. No matter how many people scream, hallelujah, how great thou art, it won't be enough if you don't own how great thou art in your heart. That's the most powerful blessing I can offer you. Until you get it here and here, it'll never be enough out here. Amen. So yeah, amen. So I get on the Maury Povich show. I do my little trip. I send out 20 VCRs. They weren't DVDs then. They were VCRs to everybody I knew. And I'd sent one to my dad. And 2 weeks after I was on the Povich show, I got real excited about going to see my dad. And when I went on the plane, after 2 weeks of being on the Maury Povich show and having, had some sort of success, people actually noticed me on the plane. Oh, you always on the Maury Povich show. My daughter sent in this picture, and it really wasn't about me. I'm just doing stuff to get more people to come to my church. Because, baloney! It was all about me, myself, and I, that moment. And so I walk into the door of my dad's house, to Alvin's house, and he's got the VCR of me on the Maury Povich show. He's watching it. And I walk in, and I'm about 12 feet tall. Yeah, Little Richard. Yeah. And the first thing my dad says to me is, what were you doing, Jesus? What were you doing? Doing the muscle off when you all flexed right before the camera went to commercial? And why were you standing next to that 6'4" guy? You look so small and little next to him. There it is again, right? Here's all the stardom and all the puffed upness of being a star. My dad says one sentence, and I'm back to ground zero again. Well, the thing is, the truth tells us, if you want to be dumbstruck and starstruck, you got to be willing to take care of success and failure inside of yourself. Because that's the way the world goes. We carved this image and likeness out of our own thought, word, deed, and habit pattern. It's based upon the idea of separate. And the moment we walked off trying to be enough to somebody else, we gave our power away to appearances. And now the work, the joy, the return is coming back home again. Not getting lost in the slings and arrows of outrageous earthly misfortunes, but allowing ourselves to connect with the presence within us. And so every day, little Richie wakes up. Doesn't he wake up for you? He's always at home. What are you going to get coffee today? Oh, let me think. Oh, I got something. How about how many people came to Jim Downer's concert? A lot of them don't come anymore to church. It must have something to do with what you're not doing. Do you understand what I'm saying? That little voice, never good enough. You sold some CDs, but you could have sold some more. Oh, I missed a key in a note. Oh, why did I not leave that out of the talk from the first service to the second? It's always commenting on what's wrong. It's what it does. And so every day, you have to have a spiritual practice. Am I not right, Alan? Otherwise, we will go insane. Where you sit down in the morning, you say, okay, I get you. I'm glad you woke up again. God bless you. Here you are again, and you take your posture in meditation. And you follow your breath in and out. In and out.
And when it starts to talk to you again, it tells you, you know, you really aren't good enough, and why did you do that? And the guilt, the shame, and the blame, and all of that, it comes up, it always does, it doesn't go away. You're never going to be without it. You just go, I hear you. And take another breath. Relax. And let's start listening to the still small voice within. Let's start going for the recognition from the one who always loves you. The 99% of you that's flooding you with blessing is your spiritual essence. Only waits for you to be open to it. And then you can hear its voice giving the only evaluation that Spirit ever has of any of its creations. This is my beloved Son, my daughter, in whom I'm well pleased. Finally. You mean I am enough? Oh, my sweetheart. You've never been anything else but loved and beloved in my eyes. Whew, what a moment, huh? And you got to keep repeating that moment. So Maureen goes off to physical therapy 3 times a week, and she's had the wrist injury where the wrist got broken, and she was going to physical therapy, still is, where they do some really strong physical manipulation of her hand to get it back in movement again. Very important part of her healing process. And when she goes, they put a pack around it and squeeze it, and then cold water, and they move it and they manipulate it. Very important that manipulation is getting all of her body's motions back connected again and working. Now has to have that happen. Absolutely essential. You have to work with the physical level. You've got to work with the 1% of the body that you're in. Don't pretend that you don't. It's not just a spiritual solution and then a physical solution. It's always a combination of both things. But she recently won, or was paid for at the auction, a visit with someone who is a physical therapist, but also a deep spiritual healer. And when she walked into the room for this session, the lights were low, the music was playing, the incense and the oils were burning, and the woman gently took her hand and touched it. Just so sweet and so tender. And said, "Oh, sweetheart, I feel that there's some tension in the spaces between your bones. I feel like you need to open up a space for healing to happen. I want to ask you something, Maureen. Have you asked your hand for forgiveness? Have you asked that part of you that's broken, that part of you that's cracked and snapped? Have you asked it for forgiveness?" And Maureen said, "You know, there's some people along the way over this last couple of months that I haven't forgiven, but I hadn't had the thought that I should ask my own body for forgiveness. But who else can do that but you?" And she says, I've got a prescription for you that I want you to follow when you're gently holding and massaging your hand to open up a space. And here's how you do it. In the Hawaiian tradition, you've heard me use this before, it's called a'opono. Say, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you were separate from me. I thought you weren't a part of me. I was blaming myself for the accident. What a stupid thing to do." "Oh, well, you know metaphysicians. Well, what happened? Oh, you slipped down a slide. Well, I wonder what thoughts you were thinking when you went down and cracked your thing. And oh gosh, you need some stuff you need to work on." Forget about all that. That's just more guilt, shame, and blame listening to little Richie beat you up one more time, which he really knows how to do. Thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry. Thank you. Please forgive me. I love you. Just feel the space open up in you. You're no longer manipulating and controlling outer events. You're dealing with what the teaching really is. Everything that happens to us is a call, not just to be cured at a physical level, but to be healed and awakened at the spiritual level. Isn't that why we're here? That's the kind of healing we want. And so what I'd like you to do is just think for a moment. I had sort of this vision about how it all works It's like a wheel. The Buddhists say that all of our karma is like a wheel. It's called samsara. Sam and Sarah, sorrowful. It's all the different roles this little ego, this little 1% has ever played. It's always reminding you of what you're in bondage to. You don't need to remind it to do it. So as you now with me sit in the center of the circle of your own forgiving thoughts, think about some things that you're being held in bondage to. If you can think of a word to call it out, call out some of those things that still have you in an Egyptian state of mind.
Guilt.
Guilt. Not enough.
Anger.
Anger. Judgment. Fear. All those things that we hold on to. All those things that speak to us from the voice of little Richie, little sweet Richie. It's not his fault. He doesn't know what else to do. That's how he gets attention. That's how she gets attention. But here's where the work is. Because the larger part of you is healed and whole and already at home. And so we get to embrace that part of ourselves. I hear you. I love you. You're a sweetheart. But as for me and my house, I'm going to decide to embrace you rather than attack you. I'm going to say this week to any one of those judgments that come up, I'm going to practice this. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you for showing me how I've gone astray, and I love you. And as you embrace that part of yourself, you become the holy Christ child, embracing your own beloved self. What child is this who's laid to rest on your lap, who's sleeping? Now it's time to wake up with compassion, forgiveness, and loving kindness. And then you become an instrument, a channel, an adult who can then walk out into the world and no longer be a slave to those states of consciousness, but an awakened one who then walks out through the healed door of oneness and can embrace others when you face those Egyptian places inside of you. You then become the Messiah, the Holy One, the healing ointment that brings the blessing to others. This is the only reason why we're here, to find some way to embrace and love who we truly are. Practice well, my friends. Practice deeply. The little child in you is waiting for you to love her, to love him. I love you, little Richard. You'll be with me always, even until the end of this body. Thank you.